Duggan, Remax Boulder Video Podcast. Today we have our monthly report from D.B. Wilson, Remax Boulder, who is the guy who keeps track of all our market stats. And today we're going to be talking about the third quarter of this year compared to the third quarter of last year. And then I think we'll even throw in a few things comparing it to 2015. So D.B., thanks for coming here to keep us all informed today. Appreciate it. So start out with covering what the 10 vital stats that we monitor are.
Okay, just to remind everybody, what we look at are the number of active listings as of the end of September, what the median sales price was, what the average sales price was, what the sales price to list price is, what the days on the market is, what the number of expired listings are, in other words, those properties that come onto the market and never sell, the total number of sales, the months of inventory, the percent under contract, and then the interest rate.
Okay, and again, this will be stats for Boulder County.
All of Boulder County, and why don't we start with single family?
Okay, let's do that. Single family, Boulder County.
Okay, so as we talked about last time, we're starting to see a little bit more balanced market, which is really good news for, we believe, for the market itself, but certainly for buyers because there's a little more inventory to look at. If you look in comparison with last year, we've actually got 11% more homes on the market. Still, it's only 918, and it's amongst our historic lows. But nevertheless, it's starting to increase. The median price is up about 4.7% to $560,000 for a home in Boulder County. The average is just under 685,900, and that's up 5% over a year ago. Sales price to list price is starting to drop a little. We had been very close to 100% sales price to list price. It's now at 98.8. That's still a very strong market. That indicator is generally between 95 and 97%, so almost 99% is still very strong. Days on the market is actually just slightly less than it was a year ago, and that's we look at the days on market to see the strength of the market and how many buyers are still out there, and that's dropped down to 58 days from 61 a year ago. So that's from the day that it's listed until the day of closing.
Yeah, it's interesting that days on the market dropped, but the sales price to list price ratio got a little wider.
Yeah,
interesting.
And there's other factors involved. If you remember TRID, there were some changes at the federal level of how closings had to occur, and that did actually add some time to the sales process, and that would have been, was it 2 years ago now?
Right.
And so I think we're through those problems, and we're starting to see that the days on market drop
down
because they've got that worked out.
Right, interesting.
As far as the number of sales, as I said, the inventory has risen slightly, but the number of sales is up about 4% over a year ago. For all Boulder County, that equates to 2,550 sales from January 1st through the end of September. Interestingly, the number of expireds is up. It's up to 65 from 45 a year ago. That's still a relatively low number, but I think it is an indicator that sellers can no longer just throw a house on the market and expect it to sell. You got to price it right, and you have to have it show well.
Do you think most of the expireds, or some of them, are in the upper ends? Because it seems like the lower end of the market price-wise is still fairly strong.
It is, though we've seen the number of high-end homes, and high-end being million-plus homes, that has actually increased by about 10% over a year ago. But I would agree with you, if you tried to generalize it, it would be more of the higher-end stuff would expire. The other interesting one is the months of inventory, and we call that an absorption rate. And we're still at 3.2 months of inventory, which is very low and indicative of a seller's market. A totally balanced market, that figure would be 5 to 7 months worth of inventory, and so at 3.2, it's still very, very low.
Strong.
So even though we're seeing more homes on the market, that inventory increasing, there's still not that much inventory available in the overall scheme of things. The percent under contract has dropped to 38% from 41%. Back in the recession, as an example, that was about 20%. And so it's still a very strong market. We maybe got up to about 45% under contract at any one time. So 38% is still indicative of a very strong market.
And then interest rates?
Interest rates, as of the end of September, were 3.81%. That's up from a year ago, about 10% actually, when it was 3.46%. One thing that's interesting is that it's actually slightly less than it was 2 years ago. 2 years ago, at the end of September, was 3.89%. So that
still pretty good rates compared to the 16% rates.
Great rate. And as you know, the Fed has talked about increasing interest rates, and now the buyback of the mortgage securities has stopped, and in fact, they're going to try to unravel that a little bit. So we do believe that the interest rates are going to start to climb.
Okay. And while we're still on the topic of single families, is there any key stats comparing third quarter 2015 to 2017?
One thing that I thought was interesting is a year ago, in 2016, we had 825 units for sale. As I said, we're at 918 now. 2 years ago, we were at 907, and so it's kind of a fluctuating thing. What is of real interest, I think, to homeowners is that if you look at the 2-year period, that average sales price has increased a little bit more than 20%, and that's why we believe that the more balanced market is going to be better for everybody. Is you just can't sustain those kinds of appreciation rates for very long. And so even though this past year was only 5%, 20% over 2 years, I think.
Right. So the stronger appreciation year was 2016 as opposed to 2017.
Correct.
So again, a little bit of a leveling off, it seems like.
Correct. And we just feel it's really important for the balanced market, kind of let everybody catch their breath, have the appreciation rate slow slightly.
Give incomes a chance to catch up.
Absolutely.
So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
No question about that.
Right. All right, why don't we jump to attached dwelling stats?
Okay. For attached dwelling, we look at those same 10 areas. What's really we're seeing now is a lot more inventory come onto the market. We're up 20% over a year ago. That equates to about 250 plus units on the market. Again, what's interesting, that's still in the historic low. If you look at what the normal amount of listings on the market at any one time would be. So a 20% jump is of interest, and we think that is going to continue with more increases. The number of sales in comparison with that is up almost 7%, or 6.5%, I guess it is. And that's just because more properties are available,
right.
Obviously.
People have a chance to buy something.
But if you remember a year ago, at this time, when we were looking at appreciation rates for attached dwelling, they were up like 30%, 25% in 1 year. And this past year, it's cooled remarkably, and it's like 3% up on median and less than 2% on average. So that has definitely come down. What's still interesting, though, is sales price to list price is still exceeding 100% at 100.2, which is very telling of a strong seller's market.
Right.
So even with the increased inventory, the sellers are getting what they're asking. Number of expired listings is exactly the same as compared to last year. And when you look at months of inventory, it's still only 2.4 months of inventory.
Pretty low.
It's very low.
Right.
It's very low. It is up slightly from 2.1 a year ago, but it is that. I mean, and that again just shows how strong of a seller's market it is. I mentioned the number of sales is up 6%, 6.5% from a year ago. 2 years ago, it was actually higher than it is today. So I'm not quite sure what that says, that because we had a very limited amount of properties on the market 2 years ago, and yet everything that was coming on the market absolutely sold and sold very quickly. But still, it's very strong. 48% of the attached dwelling in Boulder County are under contract at this point. That's a big number, and again, showing strong demand. But I do believe because of the additional inventory, if I was a buyer, I would really want to be getting out into the marketplace right now. Couple that with the interest rates maybe going up, it's a great time to buy.
Right. All right. What's your outlook for future as far as the spring market coming in? Any guesses on whether inventory is going to shoot up or stay about the same?
I think I don't know about shooting up, but I think we're going to see an increase in inventory. I'm hopeful that we see an increase in inventory. Spring historically, the last 5 years has been extremely strong with a lot of buyers out in the marketplace. I'm not sure that we're going to see as many buyers, but I believe that it will be a very strong spring. And if there is an uptick in interest rates, that can bring people that have been kind of
on the fence,
waiting and that kind of stuff can bring them into the market.
Right. So as interest rates go up a little bit, people take action before they go up too much. But then if they go up a lot, that can slow things down.
It can. Right. And so, if anybody that's thinking about getting into the market, I think it would behoove them to do so if they've got down payment and that kind of stuff, if they're ready to go. I think so many people just try to time the market perfectly, and what I've seen in my 41 years, if you really try to time it perfectly, you don't know that you missed the market until it's too late. So it's a wonderful time to be looking, and I think because of the increasing inventory, I think even next spring may be better for a buyer than it has been the last few years.
Something to pick from at least.
Exactly.
All right. Any other insights, Dad?
I don't think so.
All right, DB, thanks for being here today. Appreciate your insights in the market.
Okay.
Duane, Duggan, Remax Boulder Video Podcast, signing off.